There is a demon king in the martial arts world who likes to break his head. I have made great contributions to this. Because I was caught by Uncle Jiu. Keywords of the novel. I am a big shot in Joshu world without a pop-up window. I am a big shot in Joshu world. Download the complete TXT collection and read the latest chapters on how I am a big shot in Joshu world. Chapter 1. The Ultimate Murderer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Ultimate Murderer. At the end of summer, it's shallow and autumn is beginning. Even at dusk, the scorching heat remains. Renjia town. Within the Yizhuang. Qin Yao, tall and muscular like a copper cast iron, sat on a rattan chair, holding a piece of sand-filled watermelon in his hand. He ate it in large gulps, while Wen Kai, who was fanning him greedily, kept wriggling his throat. "Senior Wen Kai, are you really not eating it? This watermelon is so sweet." In no time, Qin Yao put down the green and white melon skin in his hand and turned his eyes to ask. Glancing at him, Wen Kai's scalp exploded and he was almost scared to tears. It's not because the other person looks too ugly, it's purely because so far he still remembers clearly that when he and Qiusheng followed their master to the ancient village in the mountains to eliminate evil, they saw with their own eyes that they forcefully smashed the skull of an armored corpse with their bare hands. This terrifying scene not only shocked him and Qiusheng, but also shocked their master, Uncle Nine. That was the first time their master and disciple met this murderer, and they were shocked by his ferocity. In order to prevent the emergence of a broken skull demon king in the world, Uncle Jiu, with a kind heart, captured him and brought him back to Renjia town. From this point on, the 3-person group in Yizhuang became a 4-person group, and he and Qiusheng had an additional, big, junior brother. I don't know if it's due to physical pressure or the first impression that almost became a psychological shadow in the beginning. He and Qiusheng both dote on this senior brother, almost to the extent of obedience. Fortunately, the eldest junior brother has a good personality. As long as he is obedient, he usually doesn't throw tantrums. If you can't finish eating, junior brother, just leave it for your master. After calculating the time, he should also come back. Wen Kai, who was lost in memories, suddenly felt a chill in his body. He looked closely and realized that junior brother had frowned. Qin Yao. For some reason, when staying with this senior brother, he always feels ashamed of being bullied by bullies. He looks a bit fierce, but is he so afraid? After much thought and confusion, Qin Yao simply stopped thinking and summoned his own system. Filial Piety Monetization System, Host. Qin Yao, Filial Piety Binder. Jiu Shu, Current Filial Piety Value. 50, please be filial to the host. If the filial piety value exceeds 500, the system will be optimized and upgraded, and there will be a mysterious gift to be given. Is it difficult to understand? When Qin Yao first obtained this ghost system, he also didn't understand it very well. What a peculiar person could have created such a system. However, despite being full of flaws, seeing that the other party had given him a second life, he didn't have much resentment towards him, just felt a bit pitted. For example, when he first traveled, there was a 1500-point filial piety card in the beginner gift package, which was said to be used to add points. He was originally considering how to add this, how much intelligence, agility, and body. Unexpectedly, when he came up with his well-thought-out plan, he was told that he couldn't add points. Following the system prompt, he flipped through the back of the filial piety card and saw, damn it, there were still 3 notes left. Article 1. This card is only applicable to attachments or enchantments, and the host can choose it themselves. Attachment. Add permanent enhancement effects. Article 2. The system is not responsible for any variations caused by attachments or enchantments. Friendly reminder. Enchanting has a certain chance of being demonized, please choose carefully. Article 3. All interpretation rights belong to the system. Just looking at these 3, not to mention anything else, just the demonization made his scalp tingle. Who would choose to be a beast if a good person doesn't do it? So, with the idea of being stable in everything, he chose to possess it, and as a result, his body exploded into this shape, carrying a non-angry and self-threatening buff at any time. To put it bluntly, Wen Kai is the most direct victim. This poor senior brother has not even dared to stop the fan in his hand now. Senior brother Wen Kai, how can we show filial piety to our master? Qin Yao turned his head and asked, turning off the screen in front of him. He, who died once, now only wants to live well, preferably forever. For him now, brushing enough filial piety values from Uncle Jiu is the key to unlocking the longevity lock. Ah! Wen Kai was taken aback for a moment, then thought seriously and said, when my master dies, choose a good cemetery for him and burn some beautiful paper wives. Qin Yao. Is this Nima a great filial piety? Uncle Jiu is dead, where should I brush my filial piety value? I'll give you another chance to reorganize your language. Without looking at Qin Yao's expression, Wen Kai knew he had said the wrong thing and quickly made up for it. You can't say death, you can't say death. It's actually very simple to show filial piety to your master. Just keep preparing something he needs. Qin Yao's eyes lit up and he said, what does he need? I think it should be money and women, Wen Kai said with great certainty. Qin Yao raised his sword eyebrows and said, are you sure you're referring to master, not you? Master and I are both men, only men understand men the most, Wen Kai said. As soon as these words were spoken, Qin Yao immediately looked at them with admiration. Do you know where Auntie Qiusheng's rouge shop is? Wen Kai said honestly, it's just across from Yihong Courtyard, it's easy to find. Qin Yao stood up and said, senior brother, please guard your home well. I'll go to the town to see Qiusheng. Junior brother, it's useless for you to go find Qiusheng. If he knew how to get money and women, he wouldn't just end up looking at shops all day. Wen Kai was a bit foolish, but he immediately understood his intention. Qin Yao smiled and said, I just need him to tell me if there are any bad things in the town that have been done to the point of being a big spew. I don't need him to give me any advice. Wen Kai was startled and said, Junior brother, don't act recklessly. Master will get angry when he finds out. Why are you angry? A gentleman loves wealth and takes it in a proper way. With the skills of his master, if he wants to catch off the beaten track, he won't even be able to stay in Yizhuang, explained Wen Kai. Master is a gentleman, do you think I look like a gentleman? Qin Yao asked. Wen Kai. Jiushu's Yizhuang, nominally belonging to Rinjia town, is actually located outside the town, even more than 10 miles away from the edge of the town. Qin Yao walked with dragon and tiger steps, rushing into the town before the sun set. He saw that there were no more vendors on either side of the street, no more pedestrians, and the street was empty and desolate. Fortunately, as a landmark building in Rinjia town, Hong Courtyard is still easy to find. The 2 large red lanterns hanging on the door guide lonely souls every night. Qin Yao had never even been to a clubhouse in his previous life, so he was naturally curious about the famous Yihong Courtyard. Unfortunately, he is penniless now and doesn't have much confidence to go inside to watch and learn. Dong dong, dong dong. Turning around, Qin Yao knocked lightly on the door of the rouge shop across from him. Who? A round-faced young man in cloth closed a miscellaneous book and asked loudly in the shop. Senior brother, it's me, Qin Yao. Qiusheng was taken aback and quickly hid the miscellaneous books. He ran over and opened the door, saying, Junior brother, why did you come? I'll make some money, Qin Yao said. Qiusheng's palm trembled and he spoke with a mournful expression, Junior brother, I don't have any spare money either. Qin Yao gave him a silent glance and said, don't talk nonsense, I don't know you yet. I wanted to ask you, in this Ren family town, whose money is black and dirty? Qiusheng let out a slight sigh of relief and pointed to the big red lantern across from him, saying, there's no need to ask, it must be from the opposite side. Recently, the Ihong courtyard has had a new owner and brought in a large group of newcomers. I once secretly opened my eyes and saw a lot of fox shadows. It has been said that the young ladies inside have various national beauties and immortals, and many of them have weak bodies and stubbornly become weak and die immediately. There must be some strange ones among them, did you tell your master? Qin Yao asked. I said it, but although master has high magic power, his physique is weak. When fighting alone, no one in the Ihong Academy can match him. But if those monsters of all sizes flock to him, he won't be able to withstand it. He had already written a letter to Mao Shan earlier, and it depends on how Mao Shan arranges. There's no need to wait for Mao Shan to arrange. Qin Yao smiled slightly and said, Master is weak, I'm not weak. If you order some tofu with brine, you can lower one thing. Let me handle them. Senior brother, are you interested in going in with me for a walk? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Extreme Tao and Mighty Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Extreme Tao and Mighty Power. Qiusheng was stunned. Oh what, if you don't go, I'll go by myself, Qin Yao said, turning around with a pretense. Junior brother, wait a moment. Qiusheng was tickled by what he said and instinctively grabbed his sturdy wrist. What's wrong? Qiusheng hesitated and said, would it be very dangerous? Qin Yao shook off his palm and walked towards the direction of the Ihong courtyard without looking back. Don't worry if you're afraid, let me go and explore the demon pool alone, he said, as a senior brother, how could I watch you go to danger alone? Qiusheng's reaction was quick. He jumped out of the rouge shop like a grasshopper, closed the door, followed Qin Yao across the road, and arrived at the door of Yihongyuan. Two gentlemen, are you drinking and listening to music, or are you having a spring night? At this moment, the charming woman in purple moved her lotus steps and slowly welcomed her, with an approachable smile on her face. However, when he saw Qin Yao's appearance against the light, the smile on his face immediately collapsed. How could there be such a fierce man in the world? How much extra does it cost to be so big? Do any girls dare to take on this job? Qin Yao turned a blind eye to the fear on his face and calmly said, arrange a private room and bring all the youngest and most beautiful girls in your store. We need to slowly choose, and after we finish, we can decide whether to listen to the music or spend the spring night together. The woman in purple said, Qiusheng. Junior brother, why are you acting so skilled? Grandpa, you have to pay first to do this, said the woman in purple later. Qin Yao's eyes widened and he said coldly, I haven't done anything yet, so I have to charge. Are you afraid that Yihongyuan is not a black shop? Staring at him with her eyes open, the woman in purple felt as if she had been targeted by a fierce beast, feeling chilly all over. She opened her mouth, but dared not refute. It has to be said that the ancient ferocious body in front of her brings too much pressure. Let's arrange it this way. As the sword drew and the crossbow opened, the young and beautiful girl in red, Shi Shiran, walked down from the second floor and said with a smile. Qin Yao looked up at her, but saw that she had a beautiful appearance and a naturally charming demeanor. In terms of appearance alone, even the internet beauties who were proficient in various witchcraft of beauty and slimming in later generations could not be compared. Are you? This is the owner of our Ihong courtyard, Miss Gu. The woman in purple bowed slightly to the girl, her face full of awe. Qin Yao took out a yellow talisman from his arms and slapped it against his forehead. With a flash of golden light in his eyes, he saw a seductive and naturally beautiful girl in front of him, clearly a fox walking upright. Looking at the yellow talisman on his forehead, the fox spirit frowned and said coldly, you shouldn't be here for fun, right? Qin Yao had a yellow talisman on his head and looked around. His gaze penetrated through one wall after another, but he saw fox demon female ghosts frantically replenishing their yang energy in indulgence. To adopt men's yang energy, a brothel has been specially opened, with low risk, high returns, and a good mind. The fox spirit's narrow eyes flickered with a cold light and shouted, "Someone, catch them." Before the words could be finished, more than 10 strong men holding sticks walked out from an inconspicuous place and surrounded their senior brothers in the middle. "Junior brother, make a quick decision in battle," Jiu said, skillfully holding his head and squatting on the ground. "Up." The leading thug waved his arm and more than 10 people rushed forward in a swarm. Bang, bang, bang. Qin Yao had never practiced martial arts, but with his abnormal physical fitness alone, he was able to crush these thugs. As he pushed and punched, more than 10 thugs fell to the ground one after another. "Let's clear the scene, otherwise it wouldn't be good to be scared if a guest discovers your demon body again." Qin Yao stepped on the arm of a thug holding a dagger and looked up at the fox spirit. "We have never killed anyone, nor even forced anyone to step into the Yihong courtyard. Why do we take action against us?" Seeing that Qin Yao was not easy to provoke, the fox spirit immediately changed its attitude and began to reason. "It's not when a white knife enters and a red knife exits that it's called killing," Qin Yao said coldly. "If you want to add guilt, why bother?" Fox spirit angrily said, "Xiao Wu, go report to the official. Someone is causing trouble in Yihong courtyard." Qin Yao was well aware that this Yihong courtyard had already experienced a serious incident and could still be managed. It must have connected the upper and lower levels. If they were allowed to report to the authorities, they would be fine when the police arrived. However, he and Qiusheng would be taken back to the prison. It's not that he can't resist, but if he wants to confront the government, it will be difficult for him to stay by Uncle Jiu's side and show filial piety in the future. "I've given you a chance, you're useless." Qin Yao sighed slightly and dodged in front of the young man named Xiao Wu. He slapped him heavily in the face, causing half of his face to collapse. "Ah!" Xiao Wu fell to the ground with a loud bang, with Venus in front of him. Bang! Qin Yao stepped on his chest with a powerful force that instantly shattered his heart. He watched as he transformed from a thin young man into a wolf cub, with a hint of contemplation on his face. He asked in secret, "System, do I have no reward for fighting monsters?" Unfortunately, it is not available in the current version. Looking at the characters in front of him, Qin Yao not only did not feel disappointed, but his gaze was slightly bright. Not available in the current version does not mean it will not be available in future versions. Is that what I mean? With over 400 points of filial piety, he can optimize and upgrade the system. I don't know what the upgraded system will look like. Monster. At this moment, a guest downstairs happened to see the scene of Qin Yao committing the crime and the young man transforming into a wolf. His legs trembled in fear and he sat down on the ground. "What are you shouting? Where are there any monsters? What do monsters look like?" Upstairs and downstairs, windows opened one after another, and heads peeked out, looking down at the lobby. "Strike them unconscious," the fox spirit roared. Bang, bang, bang. Jade arms appeared one after another in front of the window sills, hitting Anka hard on the head. "Kill!" The fox spirit ordered again. Numerous demons and ghosts drifted down from the second floor, like the 12 previous thugs, surrounding Qin Yao in groups. Qin Yao moved his wrist and gave a cold smile, "Don't talk nonsense, let's go together." "Xiao Qing." The fox spirit stared in amazement as Qin Yao punched and smashed a ghost, kicked and killed a demon, and temporarily lost his ability to think. This pervert is definitely not human. It's your turn. After killing the last female ghost, Qin Yao walked step by step towards the fox spirit with a strong and extremely murderous aura, and the cold breath made him instantly clear. "Don't kill me, I can tell you a secret." The fox spirit kept retreating until there was no way to retreat, and suddenly said. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Four-Eyed Taoist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Four-Eyed Taoist. Qin Yao stopped and the fox spirit silently breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, he suddenly moved again, his massive body as fast as a galloping horse, carrying a string of shadows, and instantly came to the other party, punching him hard in the heart. Puff! The fox spirit was beaten into an arched shape, its pupils rapidly dilated, and it spewed out a mouthful of red blood. You don't talk. Bang! Not giving her a chance to finish speaking, Qin Yao kicked her in the face, slamming her head into the wall and shattering it, to eliminate the possibility of lying dead. Nausea. Qiusheng, holding his head, heard the sound of the fight finally stop and looked up, suddenly feeling a chill all over. How else can we say that he and Wen Kai are more afraid of this junior brother than of their master? The reason is here. Uncle Jiu takes action, whether to eliminate ghosts or demons, they are all graceful, and there are rarely particularly bloody moments. Junior brother, whether it's killing ghosts or demons, it's either heartbreaking or skull-shattering. If you punch it, either your chest or your mind will shatter. Seeing so many of these things is even more terrifying than seeing ghosts. Now think about it, fortunately, Master brought back the other person from the ancient village in the mountains, otherwise there would either be an extra heartbreaking demon king or an extra skull-breaking demon king in the world. As for saying that he is a good person, he wouldn't be so cruel nonsense. What are you staring at? Why don't you go and change money quickly? Qin Yao shouted when he saw him squatting on the ground dumbfounded. Qiusheng woke up from a dream and hurriedly began to rush around. In no time, he piled up boxes of all sizes in the lobby. And when he went downstairs again, he found that Qin Yao had brought a donkey cart from somewhere and loaded all the boxes he had brought down onto the cart. The last box, by the way, should we take the money from those guests? Autumn cleverly placed the box in his hand on the donkey cart and asked softly. No, Qin Yao shook his head decisively. Close the door and leave. Qiusheng obediently closed the door and even took the initiative to lead the donkey, disappearing into the night with Qin Yao. Dawn is approaching. In the courtyard of Yizhuang, the lights are brightly lit. The four-eyed Taoist who had come from afar, picked up the kettle and poured tea for Uncle Jiu across the table, comforting him. Senior brother, didn't you say that your newly recruited disciple was born with a divine body that is invincible to knives and guns, and difficult to injure with sticks? Since that's the case, why worry? I'm not worried about him, I'm worried about him killing. Uncle Jiu sighed, killing ghosts, demons, and zombies is okay, but once a person is killed, whether it's a good person or a bad person, it will give him a feeling of killing and easily lead him astray. Seeing him frowning, his eyes quietly shifted the topic and said, Senior brother, haven't you ever thought about finding a Taoist couple after all these years? At this age, why bother thinking about this? Uncle Jiu shook his head and said, in the second half of my life, save more people, eliminate more demons, and watch my 3 disciples get married and settle down. In the future, you can take care of me. Senior brother is the 6th level Earth Master. No matter how hard you work, you may not be able to reach the Heavenly Master realm and increase your lifespan by 1,000 years. Four-eyed Taoist said, the 4 major elements of cultivation are wealth, couple, law, and earth. Junior brother, I don't have anything else, but I still have some big yellow croakers. How about I bring you a box of them and you can buy something to make up for it? His stinginess is also divided among people. The foolish disciple Jiala who picked it up wanted him an old piece of clothing, and it took him a whole 8 years before he was willing to give it. However, for his senior brother who has always taken good care of him, money is not as important. Uncle Jiu was about to speak when he suddenly heard a donkey barking outside the door. He then saw Qin Yao push the door and walk in, followed by Qiusheng whom he had not seen for a long time. At this moment, Qiusheng was pulling a rope in his hand, and behind the rope was a donkey cart. Master, when did you come back? Qin Yao strode up to Uncle Jiu and asked in surprise. It's been over 2 hours since I came back. Uncle Jiu could tell that the surprise on his face was not fake, and he was slightly moved in his heart. However, he pretended to be serious and said, I heard from Wen Kai that you went to find silver for me. Isn't all the money on this donkey cart all silver? You are truly a master, Qin Yao chuckled and asked Qiusheng to close the door. He opened the wooden boxes on the cart one by one, and a golden and silver light suddenly appeared, almost dazzling the eyes of the two Taoist elders. Uncle 9. 4 eyes. Where did you get all this gold and silver from? When he was young, Uncle Jiu was surprised and quickly asked in a voice. What he is most afraid of is that Qin Yao cannot control his desires and goes astray. If the origin of these gold and silver is not correct, even if it is related to human life and cause, he doesn't know what to do. Don't worry, Master. My disciples haven't acted recklessly. These gold and silver are all spoils of war after slaying demons and ghosts, Qin Yao replied with a smile. Where can the demons and ghosts be so wealthy? Simu couldn't help but speak. This is the junior brother of the teacher, you should call him Simu Shishu. Seeing his gaze turn toward Simu, Joshu immediately said. Qin Yao nodded and bowed, saying, See Uncle Simu. As a family member, there's no need to be too polite. 4 eyes pushed the glasses on the bridge of the nose, smiling kindly. Ordinary mountain and wild demons and ghosts naturally cannot gather such huge wealth. I have taken the home courtyard in the town. Under the questioning gaze of Uncle Jiu, Qin Yao could only honestly explain. Uncle Jiu. What? 4 eyes. As far as I know, there are many demons and monsters in Ihong courtyard, and even your master dare not act rashly. How did you do it? After a long time, his 4 eyes were shocked and asked. In this era where spiritual energy is becoming increasingly depleted, once the number of demons and monsters exceeds 100, it is no longer a simple addition problem, and their strength will increase exponentially. 4 eyes recently heard Uncle Jiu talk about this matter, and they are still waiting for Mao Shan's response. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, this tumor was torn apart by a younger generation. The battle is about strength, not quantity. Qin Yao couldn't understand Simu's surprise at the moment. Those demons and monsters couldn't fight me together, so I killed them one by one. With a movement in his heart, his gaze shifted to Qin Yao and he gradually understood. Although Jiushu has a high moral character, his body is still a mortal body, which can lead to illness, injury, and naturally death. It's okay to fight alone, but once the number of ghosts and monsters increases, it's easy to be exploited. In his current state, even a little demon can bite him, and it's hard to imagine what the result would be if hundreds of monsters rushed towards him together. Uncle Jiu's disciple was born with a divine body, and demons and monsters could not move him at all. Instead, he might be able to deal with him one by one. Thinking of this, the 4 eyes Taoist became even more interested in Qin Yao's body. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Ancestor's upper body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Ancestor's upper body. Come on, big nephew, take off your clothes. The 4-eyed Taoist, who was delighted to see him, stared closely at Qin Yao's body. Unlike Jiushu, who specializes in magic, Simu has been practicing both martial arts and martial arts since he started learning Taoism. This results in him not being able to excel in any of his skills, although he knows everything comprehensively. If he were to fight with Uncle Jiu and compete for endurance, Uncle Jiu would definitely not be able to compete with him. However, the problem is that Uncle Jiu doesn't need to compete for endurance with him. If he goes down with 2 spiritual talismans, he can tidy up his clothes and be obedient. At this point, he had no choice before, but now Qin Yao's appearance has brought him new hope. If one can also obtain such a strong physique, and if this divine body can also be used to summon the divine body, then what is Lin Jiu in front of him? Isn't it possible to knock it down with just one punch? Fantasizing here, the 4-eyed Taoist almost burst into laughter. Looking at his 4-eyed master with a lewd smile on his face, Qin Yao shuddered and silently distanced himself from him. Remember, in the original work, this product is not very popular in Longyang. Why does it feel like a strange uncle now, despite being a sharp and sarcastic character? Pop. Uncle Jiu loves face and can't stand this sharp-eyed scene. He lightly slapped the back of his 4 eyes and said, "Junior brother, be serious. The 4 eyes are simply shattered in mentality. When did I lose my composure? Why do you all look at me like this? I just want to study his body. Where are you going, dirty and filthy?" With a trembling heart, he lifted his trembling hand and pointed his eyes at Uncle Jiu, saying. Uncle Jiu raised an eyebrow and asked, "How do you want to study?" 4 eyes. Gone. How can I study what this says? Of course it's naked, let me touch it. It seems that something is wrong. Forget the research, I don't like being studied. Seeing the 2 elders freeze, Qingyao had to break the deadlock. 4 eyes were filled with regret. After pondering for a moment, they reached out and took out a dilapidated ancient book with golden threads and yellow skin from their arms. They handed it to Qingyao and said, "This is the divine hitting technique I brought down from Mao Shan, also known as inviting the divine to come to your body. Please take a good look. Junior brother." Before Qingyao replied, Uncle Jiu suddenly grabbed his wrist holding up ancient books with his 4 eyes and said in a condensed voice, "This is your way of standing up. The method cannot be passed down lightly." Looking at him calmly, he said, "Senior brother, what's the difference between your apprentice and mine? You and me, I and him still need to see outside." Uncle Jiu was speechless and slowly released his wrist. "Senior uncle, can we also see this divine combat technique?" On the side, Choshen looked at it with hot eyes and took the opportunity to ask. "Get lost," he chuckled with 4 eyes. Choshen. Is the agreed 9th uncle disciple your disciple? Am I not a disciple of Uncle 9? Autumn eggs are painful and sorrowful. Qingyao took the book and flipped through it, which was strange to say. After opening the page, the characters seemed to have spirituality in his eyes. After flipping through the book, he remembered all the content. Not easy to remember, right? Seeing him reading carefully, his 4 eyes nodded with satisfaction. "When your martial uncle and I obtained this secret book, it took me a whole 4 months to fully understand its intricacies. I hope you can surpass the blue and find the mystery within 3 months. Not only did Uncle Jiu save face, but his 4 eyes also wanted face in front of the younger generation, so 4 years became 4 months. Uncle Jiu, who had a deep understanding of him, naturally knew the truth, but he wouldn't embarrass his junior in front of his disciples. He just glanced meaningfully and then averted his gaze. With a slight sigh of relief in his eyes, he looked at Qingyao who was lost in thought. Just as he was about to give a few instructions, he heard the other person ask, "Senior uncle, what do you mean by exquisite?" 4 eyes. Reading 100 times reveals its meaning. When you truly remember the content of this divine hit, you will know what subtlety is. "But I have already remembered it," Qingyao said. "What?" He stared at me for a moment and suddenly widened his eyes. "You didn't scare me, did you?" Qingyao shook his head, closed the book, and began reciting the first paragraph of the divine strike technique with his mouth open. "This is it, so smooth." 4 eyes were stunned and speechless, turning to look at Uncle Jiu, only to see that there was also a hint of surprise in Uncle Jiu's eyes. All right, there's no need to memorize anymore." After a moment, embarrassment and defeat coexisted in Simu's heart, and he waved his hand and said, "I know you have the ability to remember everything. However, being able to remember is only the first step, and it is also the easiest one. The most difficult one is to understand the mysteries. To be honest, my senior uncle, like you, only remembered all the content after reading it a few times. What's the use of that? It took more than 3 months to complete the Xiantong stage." Qingyao listened to 4 words and was about to stop, but at that moment, a mysterious feeling suddenly appeared in his heart, driving him to continue reciting. Four Eyes waited for a while but didn't see him shut up. When they fixed their eyes, they were immediately dumbfounded. What's the smell on this kid's body? Impossible, absolutely impossible. That can't be the breath of the Grandmaster. Junior brother, do you feel an extra aura on my disciple that doesn't belong to him? Uncle Jiu suddenly asked. Four Eyes opened their eyes and said, no, you feel wrong, right? Uncle Jiu shook his head and said, it's not wrong. Maybe your cultivation is too low and you didn't notice it. Four Eyes felt a suffocation in their hearts, and a mouthful of old blood almost reached their throat. This dark-bellied Lin Jiu is simply nothing. Please, Grandmaster. At this moment, Qin Yao finally finished reciting the entire text. In the darkness, he seemed to sense a beam of gaze staring at him, and it was the following consciousness shouting. Brush. As soon as the words fell, a beam of golden light suddenly descended from the sky and penetrated Qin Yao's head. Then, with a growl, his clothes still couldn't escape the shattered fate, revealing his strong chest muscles that were shining with gold. The four stunned eyes were struck by lightning at this moment, their lips constantly trembling, but they couldn't say a word. Damn it, this powerful feeling is really satisfying, Qin Yao exclaimed excitedly, feeling the explosive power inside his body. Later, his gaze swept over Jiushu and Simu, wondering if he had drifted away. He even thought he could knock them down one by one. However, what he was not aware of was that when his gaze swept over the two of them, their scalp almost tingled and their hearts tightened at the same time. This damn sense of oppression. I don't know which ancestral spirit came from Mao Shan. Qin Yao was about to try his current strength, but suddenly his eyes turned black, and a deep sense of fatigue surged in like a tide, quickly swallowing his consciousness. Uncle Jiu walked briskly and reached out to support his body, which was about to fall. He turned his head and smiled in all directions. Over 3 months. The four eyes turned black. Gone. If it weren't for being unable to beat you, I would definitely have printed the soul on your face. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. How to choose. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. How to choose. When Kai and Qiu Sheng took Qin Yao from Uncle Jiu's arms, each holding an arm and lifting him towards the side room. Taking a deep breath with four eyes, I tried to suppress the urge to curse and forced a smile on my face. Senior brother, I want to discuss something with you. What's going on? Simu. As you just saw, Qin Yao was born to be a good cultivator of the divine art, and in terms of his physique, dual cultivation of martial arts and techniques is definitely the best result. In both aspects, I am an expert. Speaking of the key point. Uncle Jiu vaguely guessed his thoughts and his face darkened. Under his sharp and sword-like gaze, his four eyes felt pressure and secretly gave up persuading Uncle Jiu to change Qin Yao's master. He smiled and said, the key is, I want to take Qin Yao away and cultivate him carefully. In the future, Mao Shan will definitely have an unparalleled general who can fight tough battles because of this. Don't even think about it, Uncle Jiu firmly refused. Senior brother, Mao Shan needs such a person to appear, and Qin Yao himself also needs a platform for growth. You cannot let your indecisiveness ruin your sect or your disciple, Simu advised. Uncle Jiu became unusually angry and grabbed his four-eyed clothes, pulling them in front of him. He said coldly, do you understand what a master is? 1 day as a teacher, 1 lifetime as a father. I can accept his lack of ambition and his mediocrity, but I cannot accept someone pushing him into the heated bed. How could it be a pit of fire? At most, it's a bit dangerous. Simu, feeling a little short of breath and guilty, retorted softly, but without honing, how can it be refined into real gold? Uncle Jiu glared at him and turned around before leaving, just one more thing, don't come see me again in the future. Master, has something happened in Mao Shan? As he walked into the hall and saw off Qin Yao, Zhou Shengguan, who was waiting here, looked over at him at the same time. Uncle Jiu shook his head and said, it's okay. There are people in the sky and people underground on Maoshan. What can happen? Don't worry too much. As he spoke, he paused slightly and said, you should live a good life. In the future, getting married and having children, living a peaceful and happy life, is the most satisfactory result. The two of them seemed to understand but didn't understand, and instinctively nodded in response. That night. The moon is bright and the stars are sparse, and insects chirp in waves. Sitting alone in the courtyard of Yizhuang with 4 eyes, looking up at the bright moon in the sky, lonely and desolate. Behind the lobby door, Uncle Jiu looked at his figure hesitantly, unable to take a step. After more than an hour of buffering, he has now calmed down and realized that he may have overreacted. But asking him to apologize on his own initiative couldn't save face for a moment. Senior brother, I'm sorry. At this moment, Simu suddenly turned to look in the direction of the lobby and sincerely said, I overlooked your feelings. Uncle Jiu breathed a sigh of relief and stepped over the threshold, saying, it's okay, it's all over. Subsequently, the two senior brothers looked at each other with a smile, and the unpleasant feeling during the day dissipated in an instant. The morning sun is rising. Its path shines brightly. In the room, on the bed, Qin Yao slowly opened his eyes, and a golden light flashed from his eyes. With abundant physical strength, a light body, clear consciousness, and a bright world, he has never been in such a good state since crossing over. It seems that he has gently wiped away the dust on his altar with both hands. Do you still have this effect on the upper body? Given Qin Yao's psychological age, even if he was happy in his heart, he would not jump up and dance, but instead pondered the deeper reasons behind it when he stood up. Dong dong dong. Junior brother, have you woken up? Suddenly, someone gently knocked on the door from outside, followed by a questioning voice that was not much louder than a cat's meow. Here we go. Qin Yao quickly changed into a new set of clothes and opened the door to see Wen Kai's senior brother guarding the door like a younger brother. It should be said that Qin Yao had already said it many times before, but it was really difficult for Wen Kai to clear his psychological shadow, so he could only let it go for the time being. Junior brother, it's time for dinner. Master asked me to call you out, Wen Kai said with a low eyebrow and obedient eyes. Let's go. Qin Yao nodded and strode to the front door of the hall. His massive body covered most of the door frame, causing the hall to darken in an instant. Until he sat down opposite Uncle Jiu, the strong sense of oppression gradually dissipated. Qiusheng looked at Qin Yao with envy in his eyes. He also wants such a figure, whether standing or sitting, always exuding a sense of grandeur and authority. Uncle Jiu, is Uncle Jiu at home? Before finishing a meal, an unexpected guest suddenly arrived outside the Yizhuang. Uncle Jiu, who was good at face, didn't put on airs. When he heard the sound, he immediately put down his dishes and hurried out. Without saying a word, Qin Yao immediately followed, and only then did the others react and stand up one after another. Outside the gate, a middle-aged man with the appearance of a butler saw Uncle Jiu open the door, and a smile instinctively appeared on his face. Just as he was about to say hello, Yu Guang accidentally caught a glimpse of Qin Yao behind Uncle Jiu, and his heart was suddenly stirred. Be good, is this a person? Are you? Seeing him suddenly dumbfounded, Uncle Jiu had to cough and wake him up. The visitor withdrew his gaze with lingering fear, and for some reason, his admiration for Uncle Jiu stepped up the stairs again. He arched his hand and said, I, Ren Quan, am now the second butler of the Ren mansion. On the order of my master, I have come to invite Uncle Jiu to visit the mansion. Ren mansion. But Ren Fa, Mr. Ren's family. Qiusheng, who followed closely, exclaimed in surprise. Ren Quan nodded and asked, are you? My name is Qiusheng, a disciple of Uncle Jiu. It turned out to be the disciple of Uncle Jiu, disrespectful. Looking at Qiusheng's enthusiastic expression, Uncle Jiu thought for a moment and said, Qin Yao, Qiusheng, you two should come with me to the Ren mansion. Simu, take your literary talent and keep an eye on the Yizhuang. Qin Yao nodded silently and said to himself, if nothing unexpected happens, Ren Fa's invitation to Uncle Jiu this time should be for the purpose of relocating the tomb for Lord Ren. I remember in the original work, it was precisely because he refused to burn the body of Prince Ren after opening the coffin that Prince Ren awakened and turned into a zombie, ultimately scratching himself and turning him into a zombie. Qin Yao has been apprenticed to Uncle Jiu for some time, but strictly speaking, this is the first time he has been exposed to the main plot of the original work. Therefore, he is very curious whether the butterfly effect he has traveled through will affect the development of the main plot of the original work. If the impact is not significant, should I take advantage of the situation or act according to the situation? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Fierce and Terrifying Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Fierce and Terrifying Power. Senior Uncle, I have a question I want to ask you. As he was about to leave, Qin Yao suddenly said to his four eyes. With a boost in his four eyes, he quickly said, it doesn't matter if you say it, Martial Nephew. Martial Uncle, I will definitely know everything and say everything without hesitation. When I woke up this morning, I found that I was feeling refreshed and had a significant increase in strength. Is this a side effect of the inviting God technique? I'm feeling refreshed and my strength is increasing. Aren't you teasing me? Of course not, I never joke about anything serious. Four eyes. Suddenly, I have some doubts about life. Is he practicing the same spell as me? Why was I feeling lethargic the next day, as if my body had been emptied, but he was like this? Uncle, what's wrong with you? Qin Yao asked. His face twitched and he said against his heart, of course it's the effect of inviting divine spells. You just learned this spell, and there's still a lot you don't know. Qin Yao nodded in agreement and asked after him, can I use the divine invitation technique every once in a while? This kind of power increase is much faster than practicing meditation. Simu quickly shook his head and said, the God you invited is not an unconscious spirit, but the ancestors of our Maoshan sect. When you are in danger, it is only natural for you to do so. But when you are not in danger, trying to practice in this way, you cannot guarantee whether the ancestors you invited will beat you. Qin Yao understood, thanked him seriously, and then followed Uncle Jiu to step out of the gate of the charity village, disappearing from his eyes. Both inviting gods and inviting my Maoshan patriarch, why is it that he becomes more and more spiritual while I become more and more humble? Is it? Recently, there has been some reform in Naimeo, where every possessed ancestor's spirit must bring blessings to future generations. Soon, as he withdrew his gaze and muttered words, his heart gradually heated up. Pop. Later, he stood at the entrance of the hall, with 3 fingers folded in his right hand, leaving only his index and middle fingers in a sword-like shape. He then slammed his hand into the middle of his left hand, tightly gripping his right hand. At the same time, he lifted his right foot and kept stepping on the ground, devoutly reciting, please, Grandmaster, get up. Shwa. A golden light suddenly descended from the sky and penetrated his head. A powerful force instantly exploded in his body, causing his chest muscles to bulge high like inflation. Grandmaster, you don't need to give me such powerful power. I summoned you this time mainly to ask a few questions. Simu suppressed the urge to vent his anger and quickly said. The power surging within him suddenly stagnated, and then a golden light rushed out from his forehead and ancestral orifice, hanging in front of him. Say, what's the problem? 4 eyes. First of all, I want to know if you were the ancestor who went to Qin Yao's body yesterday. Qin Yao. Are you talking about the little guy with a natural divine body? Jin Guang asked. Grandmaster, what kind of divine body is that? Can it be obtained through hard work from the day after tomorrow? Nodded his head in unison. Jin Guang said, I can't get it, but if he is willing to give you a drop of heart blood and allow you to slowly nourish it in your heart, it can still significantly increase your body strength. Do you have blood in your heart? Four Eyes firmly remembered this sentence and turned to ask, there is one more thing, Grandmaster. Has the inner mouth been reformed now? After inviting the gods, Grandmaster will bless future generations. No. Jin Guang said with certainty. After blinking his eyes in confusion, he said, why did Qin Yao feel refreshed and his physique improve after inviting the gods? That's because he has a good foundation, and I easily gave him some help, said Jin Guang. Boom. Suddenly, all four eyes felt as if thunder was rolling down their heads. What has a weak foundation has nothing, but what has a good foundation provides help instead. Four eyes feel aggrieved in their hearts. Don't be jealous of him, let alone feel unfair. For a sect, limited resources can only take care of those outstanding disciples, said Jin Guang. Actually, I understand all the principles, but it's hard to calm down, sighed Simu. After a moment of silence, Jin Guang said, after listening to your thoughts, my ancestor, it's hard to calm them down. Do you also need to listen to me? With a sudden surge of energy in my eyes, a sense of unease suddenly appeared in my heart. I chuckled and said, that's not necessary, is it? My strength is low, and I can't help you in any way. No, you can help. As Jin Guang spoke, he slowly turned into a huge golden hand and said, when you first learned to use divine spells, your master never told you that this spell can only be used in times of crisis. Grandmaster, this is a special situation for me, he said, taking a step back with his eyes, very good, then Grandmaster will give you some special treatment. As he spoke, the huge golden hand with a gust of wind patted him down, causing his eyes to wander around the yard in fear. However, he always couldn't escape. He was slapped on his buttocks by the golden hand, and in the blink of an eye, he couldn't feel his buttocks anymore. There are many Ren mansions in Renjia town, but when it comes to grandeur and luxury, Ren Feigjia is definitely second to none. Without any illegal construction, this Ren mansion can be described as magnificent. Even a pond or a rockery in the mansion has countless details to explore, full of the smell of gold and silver. The leader Ren Quan had just stepped into the Ren mansion with his legs, and his originally straight waist was bent down by something. He wore a humble smile on his face, as if everyone was looking up, looking like a servant. Master, I have brought Uncle Jiu with me. Shao Qin, Ren Quan brought Jiu Shu and others to a temple, stood outside the threshold, and said to a man dressed in dark blue silk. The man respectfully inserted a stick of incense into the incense burner, bowed 3 times to the altar, then turned around and walked out of the temple. The first thing he saw was not Uncle Jiu, but Qin Yao, who was half a body taller than him behind Uncle Jiu. What are you looking at? Qin Yao frowned and said in a condensed voice. If Qin Yao, who had no expression on his face, only appeared tall and majestic, then he, who frowned, was fierce and terrifying. Even the knowledgeable Ren Fa dared not speak back at this moment, fearing that the other party would suddenly become more murderous and act recklessly. I'm afraid I can't even take a punch with my old arms and legs. Qin Yao, be polite. Looking at Mr. Ren, who was constantly shrinking his neck, Uncle Jiu suddenly felt a pang of pain and had to speak up to help him out. Yes, master. Qin Yao nodded and said to Ren Fa, what do you think I'm doing? Uncle 9. Ren Fa. Dad, is this tall man the 9th uncle? Amidst the awkward atmosphere, a young and beautiful girl walked with cheerful steps, glanced at Qin Yao in amazement, and said to Ren Fa, no wonder the people in the town say he can subdue demons and demons. At first glance, he was very powerful. Qin Yao. Why are you focusing on me? Can you take a look at Lin Jiuxing? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Blind and Unrestrained Thoughts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Blind and Unrestrained Thoughts, cough cough. Seeing Qin Yao's eyebrows furrow again and again, Uncle Jiu was really worried that he would lose his temper on the spot and make the Ren family unable to come down. He quickly coughed twice and pulled everyone's attention back to him. I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Lin Jiu, and he is my third disciple Qin Yao. Ren Fa glared at the young girl, gesturing not to speak recklessly. Then, his face was covered in a smile and he arched his hand at Jiu Shu, saying, I'm sorry Jiu Shu. Next to Ren Fa, this is the little girl Tingting. She just returned from abroad and learned the fast language of foreign devils. I hope you can forgive her. Uncle Jiu waved his hand and said with a smile, Master Ren spoke too seriously. He just admitted to the wrong person, and it's not a big deal. With admiration in his eyes, Ren Fa praised and said, You are truly a highly praised ninth uncle. Ren Quan, prepare a banquet. Today, I will have a good drink with ninth uncle. No need, ninth uncle refused before Ren Quan could respond. Mr. Ren, I can't drink, so we don't need this banquet. Let's just talk about it. Ren Fa's eyes rolled and he said, Okay, to be honest, I invited Uncle Jiu over today to move my father's grave. Well done, why move the tomb? Uncle Jiu asked inexplicably. Ren Fa said, This matter is a long story. More than 10 years ago, when my father was dying of illness, I found a feng shui treasure land for him and asked a feng shui master to turn it into a dragonfly waterhole to gather good fortune. In the first few years, I didn't feel much, but in recent years, my family's business has been losing more and more seriously, and my luck has been weakening. I suspect that there may be something wrong with this tomb. Behind Uncle Jiu, Qin Yao's heart was moved. Whether the main plot had been affected or not, the first butterfly effect appeared. In the original work, it was probably the feng shui master who built the tomb who requested Ren Fa to raise the coffin and relocate 20 years later, but the reality turned out to be that Ren Fa wanted to raise the coffin and relocate himself. It seems that the relationship between these two is just a passive and an active one, but in reality, there is a tiny difference and 1,000 miles of error. The variables generated by this crack in the future are enough to change the outcome. It's not too late, let's hurry to Mr. Ren's resting place now, said Uncle Jiu. Uncle Jiu spoke up, and Ren Fa had no objections. Therefore, Ren Quan arranged for his servants to bring several soft seats without covers, respectfully inviting Ren Fa, Ren Tingting, and Uncle Jiu to take their seats. Master Ren, this seat. Uncle Jiu pointed to the seat and spoke. Master, just sit down, we don't need it. As Qin Yao spoke, he dragged Uncle Jiu to his seat and whispered softly, Master, why are you confused at this time? If you don't take the seat, would the Ren family feel embarrassed to sit? Uncle 9. At this moment, he suddenly understood that Qin Yao was not ignorant of the world, but did not want to be trapped by it. Anyway, for Qin Yao, a fist can become truth. If one fist doesn't work, then 2 fists. But Lin Jiu is not capable. Having received traditional education, he could not ignore the rules of the world, so his ambitious disciple bent down and integrated into the world, filling in his gaps. Thinking about this, Lin Jiu was deeply moved. He patted Qin Yao's arm with satisfaction and said, Sit down, master. Qin Yao. Why do you suddenly feel that this old man is a bit strange? Did he think of something in a barren way? Junior brother, do you think Miss Ren is pretty? On the way, Qiusheng repeatedly looked at Ren Tingting sitting on the soft seat, his eyes almost straight. Qin Yao followed his gaze and said, Fortunately, it's better to be young. Qiusheng chuckled and said, I'm not saying it. Your vision is also too high. If it's okay, then what is considered beautiful? Look at how you've never seen the world before, Qin Yao said. To be honest, I've seen more beautiful women than you have. So powerful. The mountain demon and fox are charming. Qiusheng exclaimed in surprise. You two should be safe, Uncle Jiu couldn't bear to listen anymore and turned to say. Upon hearing the end of the drink, Qin Yao's face remained calm, but Qiusheng blushed a bit. He looked like a pure virgin going to the brothel, but Qin Yao laughed so hard that he couldn't hold back his smile. In the blink of an eye, a group of people arrived at a hill with green mountains, fresh air, and stopped in front of a stone tomb. The servants fell off their soft seats, and Uncle Jiu walked down immediately. When he saw the stone tomb, his face changed slightly. "What's wrong, Uncle Nine?" Renfe quickly asked when he found Uncle Nine's face was not right after getting off the sedan chair. "Does your family have a grudge against that feng shui master?" Uncle Jiu asked. Renfe's eyes flickered and he said, "Something that doesn't exist." Uncle Jiu shook his head and said, "If it weren't, how could the other party tamper with the tomb?" He carefully tapped the water hole and forcefully transformed it into a vicious one. "Ah!" Renfe was shocked and said in a resentful voice, "So the problem really lies here." Qin Yao said in a deep voice, "You'd better explain the truth in detail, otherwise my master won't be able to save you either." Facing Jiu Shu, who was surrounded by secular rules, Renfe seemed gentle, but in fact, he still had a sense of pride in his heart. But every time he faced the disciple of Jiu, he would feel a sense of emptiness in his heart. This kind of emptiness cannot be filled with wealth. Therefore, under Qin Yao's increasingly sharp gaze, he honestly said, "This feng shui treasure land was originally owned by the feng shui master. I bought the treasure land from him through coercion and inducement, and made him turn it into a cemetery." Uncle Nine. This old master also has a big heart. Just offending the feng shui master and asking the other party to repair his father's tomb is enough. Do you think you have taken advantage of the other party? Uncle Jiu, you must help me. Renfe was really scared now, because he knew very well that all his strength came from his family business. If his family fell, then waiting for him would be the end of his life. This is not just about him losing his life, the entire family will also be unlucky. "Master, Tan Shui is too muddy." Qin Yao pursed his lips and warned Uncle Jiu. Uncle Jiu said, "I know. But as a disciple of Mao Shan, wherever I am, I naturally have to guard the safety of that place. If I choose to ignore it today because I find it troublesome, I will never be able to behave properly, sit upright, be upright, and have a clear conscience in the future." Looking at the upright ninth uncle, Qin Yao smiled from the bottom of his heart. Perhaps this is the charm of Uncle Jiu. It is the main reason that can be unforgettable even after decades. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Filial Piety and Virtuous Grandchildren. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Filial Piety and Virtuous Grandchildren. As the conversation between the master and disciple did not avoid others, Renfe finally felt relieved upon hearing this and repeatedly thanked him. "Thank you very much, Uncle Jiu." "Thank you very much, Uncle Jiu." Uncle Jiu raised his hand and said seriously, "You don't need to thank me. Hurry up and open the coffin. I want to see the body of Mr. Ren." Renfe nodded slightly and glanced at Ren Quan, who immediately felt a sense of reverence and hurriedly commanded his servants to dig graves and hang coffins. "Master, why is this coffin placed upright?" Jiusheng asked curiously as he watched more than 10 people working together to pull the wooden coffin out of the ground using a lever. The dragonfly's water hole cannot be buried flat, it can only be buried in a legal manner. The called legal burial is to place the coffin vertically, explained Uncle Jiu. Renfe spoke up and said, "That feng shui master said the same thing back then." "Uncle Jiu, you just said that the other party had tampered with this tomb. I wonder where these tampering went." Uncle Jiu pointed to the cement on the cemetery and said, "Dragonfly's water hole cannot be covered with foreign ash, otherwise the spiritual energy inside cannot be released. How can it feed back to your Ren family? Even because the spiritual energy accumulated over the years cannot be released, feeding back to the body of the old master is likely to make the body telepathize." Renfe was surprised and said, "What does corpse teleportation mean?" "The meaning is to become a zombie," Qin Yao suddenly said. Renfe. Ren Tingting. Master, the coffin has been lifted out. Should we open it now? Ren Quan came to them and said, while the father and daughter were still lost in thought. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. As Ren Fa was about to speak, a group of crows suddenly flew out of the distant mountains and forests, piercing the sky with their sharp cries, causing them to suddenly awaken. Following the sky, it quickly darkened, like a prelude to a storm, filled with the oppressive atmosphere of wind and rain in the world. Everything is up to Uncle Jiu to decide. Uncle Jiu glanced at the crow in the dimly lit sky from a distance, frowned slightly, and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, today is the day when Ren Taigong bravely reunites with the sky. Anyone aged 22, 35, 36, 48, belonging to the chicken or ox, must turn around and avoid it." In the crowd, 7 or 8 people turned around, with men and women. Uncle Jiu nodded and immediately spoke, "Avoidance is over, tidy up your clothes and prepare to open the coffin." Everyone turned around and 4 young people stood at the corners of the coffin, waiting for orders. "Open the coffin." Uncle Jiu glanced at the sky and said in a deep voice. 4 young people immediately bent down, one grabbing a corner of the coffin lid and lifting it with force. Shwa! At this moment, a visible black aura flew out of the coffin and quickly disappeared into the void. Qin Yao looked into the coffin with everyone, and saw a corpse dressed in a Qin dynasty official robe lying flat in the center of the coffin. If it weren't for its dark cheeks and tightly closed eyes, it looked like a living person. "The corpse has already changed," Qin Yao said solemnly. Upon hearing this, Ren Fa, who was about to kneel down and cry, quickly retreated as if he had been stung by a scorpion. Uncle 9. Ren Tingting. Has the corpse turned into a zombie? Shortly after, Ren Tingting, who felt a bit embarrassed about her father, asked. Yes, Qin Yao definitely said. As someone who has accepted Western, advanced thinking, Ren Tingting always holds a skeptical attitude towards these gods and ghosts. Therefore, her fear is more derived from disbelief. As long as it is not that zombies bounce around in front of her, she can be fearless. So what should we do now? On-site cremation is the best choice, Qin Yao said without hesitation. The bodies have all been burned to ashes, so there is no need to worry about the consequences of their transformation. No way. Ren Fa suddenly said, "My father was most afraid of fire before he died. If he were cremated today, wouldn't it be unfilial?" Qin Yao glanced at him and smiled, "Follow you." If he continued to persuade with kind words, Ren Fa might stick to his own opinion, but his appearance of being a master who cares about you to death actually left Ren Fa feeling very uneasy, to the point where he asked Uncle Jiu in a low voice, "Uncle Jiu, what do you think?" "He's right." Jiu Shu pointed at Qin Yao and said to Ren Fa earnestly, "Once a corpse turns into a zombie, there won't be any father-son relationship. Even because they all come from the same source, your blood is more attractive to him, which leads to him being unfavorable to you. Burn." Upon hearing this, Ren Fa said decisively. Uncle 9. Filial piety is touching. Bang. Suddenly, something unexpected happened, and the old man lying in the coffin suddenly opened his eyes. He jumped out of the coffin like a spring, and his shiny black nails fiercely stabbed towards the nearest 9th uncle. In terms of Uncle Jiu's strength, it is not difficult to dodge, but the problem is that the group of people from the Ren family are too close to him. If he dodges, it is estimated that many people will be injured or even killed by Grandpa Ren. In a critical moment, he was ready to sacrifice himself to save others. Anyway, there are people below Mao Shan. Even if they really die, they can still secure a position in the underworld after death. Then they can find a way to protect their 3 disciples in the world. Boom. However, before he could face Lord Ren, a huge black shadow passed by him, punching him like an open mountain and hitting Lord Ren's chest heavily. Grandpa Ren's body was instantly arched, and a pair of blood-red eyeballs almost jumped out of his eye sockets. After a moment, his body quickly threw back like a broken kite. Uncle 9. Ha! His grandmother almost forgot that his 3 disciples were not as useless as the other 2 disciples, and they were unreasonable when it came to torturing zombies. Qin Yao took a big step forward and arrived in front of Prince Ren before he stood up. He kicked him heavily in the face and with a loud bang, he forcefully smashed his head into the mountain. Bang, bang, bang. Step by step, after a while, Grandpa Ren couldn't see anything above his neck. In the crowd, Ren Fa's lips trembled for a moment and he looked at Uncle Jiu pleadingly. Uncle Jiu, give my dad a good time. Looking at Prince Ren, who had been ravaged by blood, Uncle Jiu felt relieved in his heart. He nodded and quickly walked over to Qin Yao, saying, "All right Qin Yao, let me handle the rest of the matter." Qin Yao finally stomped his foot into the deep pit, feeling that Lord Ren's head had been crushed by himself. He then slowly retreated and handed the body over to Uncle Jiu for disposal. Uncle Jiu flipped his hand and took out a piece of talisman paper. With a gentle shake, the talisman paper ignited without any fire, releasing an orange flame. Dust returns to dust, soil returns to soil. Old man, have a good journey. Uncle Jiu sighed slightly and threw the burning talisman paper in his hand towards the old man's body. Hoo! Suddenly, a sudden change occurred, and a strong wind blew over the hill, causing sand and rocks to fly and blow away Jiushu's talisman. Not only did Xingxing blow it away, but he even caused many people to blow it upside down. Qin Yao was not affected. He squinted his eyes and looked towards the wind, but saw an old man with a disheveled head riding the wind and stopping beside Prince Ren. He reached out and grabbed his legs, trying to pull them out of the ground. With a click, Ren Taigong's body was pulled out by him, but his head was gone. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Autumn Enlightenment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Autumn Enlightenment. The old man was bewildered. Not being confused is not enough. You should know that this corpse was a top-notch zombie that he spent more than 10 years cultivating using a dragonfly to dot a water hole. It's not the kind of ordinary zombie that can be compared to. But why is it that it's gone? Where's the head? Did you get kicked to pieces by those few kicks? Just kidding. How fierce power does that require? The old man is completely unable to understand this. Are you the feng shui master? Uncle Jiu approached Qin Yao and asked as he looked at him. The old man didn't even glance at him, but instead looked up at Qin Yao and said, "You've ruined my hard work for over 10 years. How can you compensate?" Qin Yao looked calm and said, "The zombie you raised almost injured my master. How should we account for this? As you said, I almost got hurt, but I didn't get hurt." "But you did break my zombie head," the old man said. Qin Yao sneered, "You're zombie. Have you asked for the opinion of Lord Ren or the opinion of the Ren family?" The old man snorted coldly and said, "Don't bother around. Later on, I remember you. One day, I will also refine you into a zombie and drive you for me." Chang. Uncle Jiu flipped his hand and pulled out the peachwood sword he was carrying on his back, rushing towards the old man at high speed. The old man dragged Grandpa Ren's body and retreated all the way to the edge of the cliff, jumping down and saying, "Also, Ren Fa, our accounts are not over. Let's wait for my revenge slowly." Amazingly, after it left, the dark clouds dissipated in an instant, and the sky gradually regained its brightness. Ren Fa. He has never regretted it as much as he does now. It's not good to offend anyone, but to offend a feng shui master. I have accumulated gold and silver treasures over the years, while the other party has increased their magical cultivation in recent years. People who could have been killed by a few servants back then are now able to soar through the clouds, raise corpses and refine demons, even becoming prey to the other party. Now that I think about it, I really agree with the old saying. If you don't kill a snake, you must suffer its harm. Uncle Jiu, you are the guardian god of Arinja town. You must save me. After regaining consciousness, Ren-Fa knelt down in front of Uncle Jiu with a thud, looking panicked. Uncle Jiu reached out and helped him up, then turned his eyes and asked, Qin Yao, what do you think? Qin Yao Dao said, only 1,000 days of being a thief, how can one guard against thieves for 1,000 days? The feng shui master waited for more than 10 years for revenge. It can be expected that he can continue to wait. Master, you can't stay in the Ren family for your whole life, can you? Upon hearing this, Ren-Fa became panicked again and turned his head to look at his daughter. Seeing that she was still wandering in the sky, he quickly tugged at her clothes and wanted her to plead with the disciple of Uncle Jiu. Until now, he couldn't tell that Uncle Jiu highly valued this third disciple. Although he didn't follow orders, he had discussions on everything except for principled matters. I only hope that this three-disciple hero can pass the beauty pass and be willing to help the Ren family overcome this difficulty for the sake of Tingting's face. After being pulled twice by Ren-Fa, Ren Tingting, who was dumbfounded, finally regained her senses. She couldn't grasp her father's meaning in a daze and opened her mouth, asking, can that person from earlier fly? Ren-Fa's face turned black and he scolded, the Ren family is almost finished. Do you still have the mood to pay attention to whether others can fly? Kneel down quickly and beg Mr. Qin for help. Ren Tingting had never seen her father get so angry before, and thus she knew the seriousness of the matter. There was no such thing as returning from studying abroad. With the pride of the emperor's delicate daughter, she trembled and knelt down in front of Qin Yao, pleading, Mr. Qin, please save the Ren family. Click. This sound was not that something was broken, but that Qiusheng's heart was broken. As a poor boy who has no career, no family and no business, Ren Tingting has a rich family background. Girls who return from studying abroad are not called by Fume, but his mother is called goddess. An unattainable goddess. However, he never dreamed that such a goddess would one day kneel before them. Well, to be precise, kneel before Qin Yao. I don't know whether to be jealous or not, my heart is full of mixed feelings. Qin Yao glanced at her and said calmly, it's no use asking me. Whether or not I can help you, how can I help you? It depends on my master's wishes. Ren Tingting didn't expect herself to be so humble that she knelt down. The man was still so indifferent, but her father's stern gaze warned her that it was not time for her to lose her temper. She had to endure her dissatisfaction and turn to ask Uncle Jiu. You should get up first, Uncle Jiu Su helped and then said, as the direct relatives of old Tai Gongren, if you are really afraid, you can come with us to stay in the Yizhuang for a period of time. As long as you are in the Yizhuang, I can ensure your safety. Ren-Fa and Ren Tingting both know what Yizhuang is for. If they don't have to, they will deliberately avoid Yizhuang on their way, let alone move in. But at this point, for the sake of their own safety, they dare not say a word of no, no matter how unwilling they may be. Thank you very much, Uncle Jiu, for taking us in. Later, Ren-Fa solemnly said, to thank you for your kindness, I am willing to invest 300 taels of silver to repair the Yizhuang. Uncle 9. Spend 300 taels of silver to repair the village. Crazy. What's wrong with using so much silver for? Master, if Mr. Ren wants to repair it, you can let him do it. After all, his elderly family may live in the Yizhuang for a period of time. You can't let them suffer with us, can you? Qin Yao immediately advised before Uncle Jiu refused. Uncle Jiu is kind-hearted and willing to help others. He has no objections, but he doesn't expect anything in return. This needs to be changed. As far as he knew, before his arrival, as a disciple of Mao Shan, Uncle Jiu was constantly worried about money, which seemed extremely unbelievable to him. Later on, he realized that Uncle Jiu was so poor that he didn't seek anything in return. Yeah, Uncle Jiu, I've spent so much money not only to repair the charity estate for you, but also to make my own living more comfortable. You know, my family is used to being wealthy and can't stand the simple living conditions. Ren Fa, who has been doing business for so many years, still has the ability to observe words and expressions, quickly agreed. They both sang and reconciled, saying that Uncle Jiu didn't know how to refuse, so he could only glare at Qin Yao and secretly blame him. Qin Yao gave him a faint smile, with a calm expression and a calm gaze, possessing a calm and gentle demeanor. He didn't even care about him blowing his beard and staring at him. On the side, Xiao Transparent Qiusheng saw all of this and silently thought to himself, how do you feel like my junior brother is even more mature and stable than my master? At some moments, it's like being a big shot. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Ren Tingting again. He saw that the other person's gaze had long been fixed on his junior brother, unwilling to move away. I must practice well in the future. Qiusheng silently clenched his fists, only to this day did he truly realize the preciousness of cultivation. What does having money and power count? Unable to withstand a single blow in front of demons and monsters, and unworthy of mention in the face of Taoist and magical techniques. It's also my master's fault. He is usually too talkative and lacks airs, which makes him not realize the value of being a mage. Now that he has lost his way, he only hopes that it will not be too late. I dare not expect too much, I can have 1/3 of my junior brother's charm. In the end, Qiusheng set a small goal for himself, and from then on, he finally had his own pursuit in life, no longer indulging in frivolous activities. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Extreme Cruelty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Extreme Cruelty. Master Ren, will you and Ling Qianjin come with us back to the Yizhuang now, or will you go back to the mansion to pack up your things first? After instructing the servants of the Ren family to fill the grave and burn the wooden coffin of Prince Ren, Uncle Nine asked Ren Fa. Ren Fa said decisively, Tingting and I will go to the Yizhuang with you now. As for our daily needs, let Ren Quan arrange them. Yes, sir, I'll make sure everything is arranged properly, Ren Quan quickly responded. Uncle Jiu nodded and said to his two disciples, I see many graves on this mountain. When I pass by their place, I cannot ignore them. You two stay and leave incense upon seeing the graves. Remember, only 3 incense sticks can be placed on each tomb, neither too many nor too few. Why is this? Qiusheng asked curiously. Without learning, without skill. Uncle Jiu glared at him and waved his hand, saying, ask your junior brother. Qiusheng was speechless and reached out to grab his hair. After watching the large army leave, he then asked Qin Yao, junior brother, did master ever tell you this before? Qin Yao shook his head. Then he asked me to ask you, do you think our master is old and confused? Qin Yao took out 2 incense sticks from his pocket and gave them to Qiusheng, saying, have you ever heard of the phrase, Xingmi En, or Domi Qiu, senior brother? I haven't heard of it, I don't have the luck to attend a private school, said Qiusheng. Simply put, giving 3 incense sticks is a etiquette, and the owner of the tomb can enjoy the incense with peace of mind. Once you give too much, kind-hearted ghosts may find ways to repay your kindness. Those with a bad heart may become entangled with you, demand more, and even seek revenge. Whether it's repaying kindness or seeking revenge, it's troublesome. Why are there 3? Are the 4 different? The number 4 is not as auspicious as 3. Why can't it be 5? There are only 2 more left and right. Senior brother, do you want to be beaten up? Qiusheng's face changed and he immediately changed his tone. I understand, it has to be 3. It can't be too much, nor can it be too little. Sorry to bother you. After persuading others with reason, Qin Yao took out a fire folder and lit 2 incense sticks. Then, he drew out 3 sticks and inserted them in front of the graves. Qiusheng followed the example and inserted it, but before he knew it, he came to a tombstone and looked at the woman's photo on it, saying, "It's a pity to die so young." After speaking, he gently inserted the incense in front of the grave. "Thank you." Just as he turned around, a soft thank you voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Qiusheng was startled and his hair stood up, shouting loudly, "Junior brother, there's a ghost. Isn't it normal for ghosts to be in the cemetery? What are you shouting?" Qin Yao approached him empty-handed and frowned, asking. "Qiusheng." He was speechless. The atmosphere was very awkward. Qin Yao came to the woman's tombstone and looked at her portrait, saying, "First, report your family background. We are disciples of Lin Jiu from Maoshan sect, and sending incense is a courtesy. I hope I haven't disturbed you." Maoshan sect. "I know now," the female ghost in the tomb pondered. Qin Yao smiled and turned around, saying, "Let's go, senior brother." "Junior brother, can the name of Maoshan sect scare her?" Qiusheng asked on the way down the mountain. "I don't know," Qin Yao said, "but it will make her feel somewhat hesitant. Even if she wants to do something against us, she dare not do it completely. This is the advantage of having a backing. Junior brother, how come you understand so much? It doesn't match your size at all. What do you think my size should be a good match for? Is it reckless and ignorant, or is it just a lack of brute force?" Autumn hesitates for a moment, afraid to answer. It's night. The moon is dark and the wind is high, and the strong wind is howling. In the Yizhuang, Wen Kai, with a small braid tied behind his head, held a large handful of incense in his hand. He pulled open a thick cloth curtain and bowed to 2 rows of zombies dressed in official uniforms, saying, "Big brothers, it's time to eat." Yizhuang has the function of storing corpses, but does not produce zombies. Therefore, these old brothers are not owned by the Yizhuang, but by the customers who were previously sent by the 4 Eyes Taoist to the Yizhuang. When they are sent to the underworld, they can obtain a certain amount of yin virtue from the ghost chai. Some people call this job driving corpses, some call it ferrying, some call it escorting, all of which come in various forms with generous rewards. However, if there is no background behind them, and if one lacks the ability, they will die faster than anyone else. It should be noted that the clients sent to the underworld must be zombies with no descendants or those who cannot be found. Otherwise, sending their ancestors to the underworld without informing them would be too unethical. Soon after the incense ceremony ended, Wen Kai yawned and roasted about 4 Eyes and Qiusheng, and strode to the door. These 2 people, the former was the culprit that increased his workload, while the latter was supposed to rotate shifts with him, but always found excuses to escape. As for Qin Yao, whether it's literary talent or Qiusheng, even their master never mentioned asking him to do such a thing. It's not because he spoils him, but more because he's afraid that if something unexpected happens, he will launch a fierce attack to damage these customers. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the literary talent, causing him to shiver and rub his palms. As he closed the door, he caught a glimpse of more than 10 yellow talismans fluttering in the wind. A prestigious Huangquan customer suddenly opened his eyes, either blood red or blue. "Oh no, I forgot to pull up the curtain." Wen Kai's heart suddenly thumped, his mouth bitter, and his cheeks wrinkled like bitter gourds. Fortunately, his reaction was not slow. When the zombies smelled his breath and jumped out, they slammed the wooden door shut and ran towards the yard. "Junior brother, help me." In the wing room, Qin Yao suddenly opened his eyes, grabbed the coat at the head of the bed as he got out of bed, and wrapped it around his body. Without time to put on his shoes and socks, he rushed out of the room barefoot. Boom! When he rushed to Wen Kai's side with vigorous steps, the thick wooden door of the morgue flew up with a huge roar, fiercely smashing it onto the heads of the 2. Bang! Qin Yao punched, with a thunderous sound. The solid wooden gate was torn apart by his violent power, and debris flew everywhere. What happened? At this moment, Uncle Jiu and Simu arrived at the courtyard and asked in unison. When Kai, whose face turned pale, was panting heavily. Just as he was about to explain, he suddenly saw zombies jumping out of the morgue one by one. He quickly reached out and pointed forward. Master, Uncle, you're faking a corpse. What kind of corpse are you deceiving? I see it's clearly because you didn't take good care of it. Uncle Jiu glared at him fiercely, raised his right arm, pinched the sword technique, bit his middle finger, and turned his head to look around. Using the same tactics, Simu and Joshu rushed towards the zombies and fought with a group of zombies, continuously smearing blood from their fingers on their foreheads to immobilize their bodies. Uncle, Master, do you need any help? Qin Yao asked loudly. Yes. Don't do it. With 4 eyes sideways, he dodged the attack of a zombie and pressed his blood fingerprint on the forehead of another zombie, temporarily immobilizing the other zombie's body. He said discontentedly, Lin Jiu, can you stop being so shameless? Let my disciple help me out. What's wrong? No one will say anything about you because of this. Uncle Jiu raised his eyebrows and said, I was originally thinking about it for you. Since you don't appreciate it, let it go. Qin Yao, let's take action. Your senior uncle will accept your favor. 4 eyes. What does accepting his favor mean? What's wrong with considering for me? Before he could come up with a solution, Qin Yao swung his arms and rushed into the zombie. With a punch, the zombie in front of him was immediately pierced through his chest. 4 eyes. End of this chapter.